Hello and welcome to the Ssc Cgl mock test, and we are having a topic based test. So for today our topic is going to be one word substitutions. So in a one word substitutions, they give you a description, a sentence, and then among the four options you have to choose which option is it that is being described. So it's the power of your vocabulary, of course, in one word substitutions, and so let's get down to it. So we say click on start. So we come to the first question over here, which asks us one who studies the working of the human mind, and the options that are given are anthropologist, psychologist, neurologist, or ethnologist. So our answer is going to be option B, which says psychologist. A psychologist is a person who studies the working of the human mind. So we are going to click on option B and say next. So coming to question number 2, it asks us place given to soldiers to live in. And the options given are barracks, trench, garage, quay. And the correct option is option A, which says barracks. Barracks is a place where soldiers live. So we are going to go and click on option A and say next. Coming to question number 3, it says a person of South African Dutch descent, and the options given are Boer. All of them are pronounced Boer, but they have different spellings. First one says B-O-A-R, second one says B-O-E-R, third one says B-O-O-R, and fourth one says B-O-R-E. And the correct option for us is going to be option B, which says B-O-E-R. Boer is a person of South African Dutch descent. So we'll click on option B and say next. So for question number 4, it asks us lack of skill. What do you call lack of skill? They have given 4 words, the 4 options. Is it inertness? Is it insistence? Is it ineptness, or is it insolence? And the correct option is option C, which says ineptness. Ineptness is lack of skill. So we will click on option C. Click and say next. So coming to question number 5. It says stick with a thick end used in a mortar for pounding, and the options given are thistle, stifle, scepter, and pestle. And the correct option is option D, which says pestle. Pestle is a stick with a thick end used in a mortar for pounding. So we click on option D and say next. So on to question number 6. It asks us an act when people vote in order to make a decision about a particular subject or policy rather than voting for a person. So the options given are election, exit poll, by-election, or referendum. And the correct option is option D, which says referendum. Referendum is, as it says, where people vote for a policy and not for a person. That is called referendum. So we click on option D and say next. So coming to question number 7, it asks us one who sets type for books, newspapers, etc. And the options given are typist, editor, composer, or compositor. And the correct option is option D, which says compositor. Compositor is someone who sets aside for books, newspapers, etc. So we click option D and say next. So on to question number 8, it asks us land covered by water on 3 sides, and the options given are island, mainland, strait or peninsula, and the correct option is option D, which says peninsula. Peninsula is the land which is covered by water from 3 sides. So we click option D and say next. So coming to question number 9, it asks us a drug or other substance that produces sleep, and the options given are soporific, depressant, narcotic or antiseptic, and the correct option is option A, which says soporific. Soporific is a drug that produces sleep. So we click option A and then say next to our next question. So coming to question number 10, it asks us a thing no longer in use, and the options given are illusion, illegal, obsolete and historic, and the correct option is option C, which says obsolete. Obsolete is a thing which is no longer in use. So we click obsolete and then say next. So on to question number 11. It says a place where astronomical observations are made, and the options given are laboratory, observatory, astro library and astroferry, and the correct option is option B, which says observatory. Observatory is a place where astronomical observations are made. So we click option B and say next. On to question number 12. It asks us killing one's sister. What is it called? So is it called regicide, fratricide, matricide or sororicide? And the correct option is option D, which says sororicide. Sororicide is murdering one's own sister. So we click option D and say next. So on to question number 13. It asks experts who scientifically study insects, and the options given before us are gerontologists, pathologists, entomologists or ornithologists, and the correct option is option C, which says entomologists. Entomologists are people who study, experts who scientifically study insects. So they're called entomologists. So we click option C and say next. So coming to question number 14, it asks us one who pretends to be what he is not, and the options given are hypocrite, pessimist, optimist or infallible, and the correct option is option A, which says hypocrite. Hypocrite is the person who pretends to be what he is not. So we click option A, then say next for the next question. So coming on to question number 15, it says a paper, story or poem first written out by hand. And the options given before us are handicraft, manuscript, handiwork or thesis, and the correct option is second option, option B, which says manuscript. manuscript is any kind of writing which is written by hand. So we click option A, beg your pardon, option B, and then say next. So coming on to question number 16, it says a place where money is coined, and the options given before us are bank, mint, firm, or parliament, and the correct option is option B, which says mint. So mint is a place where money is made, where money is coined. So we click on option B, then say next. So coming on to question number 17, it says the process by means of which plants and animals breathe, and the options given are respiration, germination, absorption, or transpiration, and the correct option is option A, which says respiration. Respiration is the process by which plants and animals breathe. So we click on option A and say next. So on to question number 18. It says, one who sneers at the aims and beliefs of his fellow men. And the options before us are critic, connoisseur, pedant, or cynic. And the correct option is option D, which says cynic. Cynic is the person who sneers at the aims and beliefs of his fellow men, who makes fun of the aims and beliefs of his fellow men. So it's option D, cynic. We click cynic and say next. So coming to question number 19, it reads, a small shop that sells fashionable clothes, cosmetics, etc. And the options given are store, stall, boutique, or booth. And the correct option is option C, which says boutique. Boutique is a shop that sells fashionable clothes, cosmetics, etc. So we click option C and say next. So on to question number 20, it reads interval between two events, and the options given are recess, interlude, shuttle, or prelude, and the correct option is option B, which says interlude. Interlude is the gap or the interval between two events, and we click option B. Go to the next question, which is number 21, and it says a person's peculiar habit, and the options given are peculiarity, trait, distinction, or idiosyncrasy, and the correct option is option D, which says idiosyncrasy. Idiosyncrasy is a person's peculiar habit. So we click option D and say next. So on to number 22, it says the art of delaying, and the options given before us are regeneration, inflation, procrastination, and regression, and the correct option is option C, which says procrastination. Procrastination is when you delay things, always keep on delaying things. I'll do it tomorrow, I'll do it tomorrow. That is procrastination. So we click option C and say next. On to question number 23. It asks us a doctor who specializes in the diseases of the eyes, and the options before us are ophthalmologist, optimist, optician, or orthodontist, and the correct option is option A, which says ophthalmologist. Ophthalmologist is a doctor who specializes in the diseases of the eyes. So we click option A and say next. On to number 24. It asks us a person who eats too much, and the options before us are cannibal, glutton, obese, or carnivorous. And the correct option is option B, which says glutton. Glutton is a person who eats too much. So we click option B, glutton. Save and next. So moving on to question number 25, it says a narrow stretch of land connecting two large bodies of land. So the options given are lagoon, cape, strait, or isthmus. And the correct option is option D, which says isthmus. Isthmus is a narrow stretch of land connecting two large bodies of land. So we click on option D and say next. On to question number 26. It says an animal which preys by preying on other animals, and the options given are aggressor, attacker, terminator, or predator. And the correct option is predator. Option D. Predator is an animal that preys on other animals, that kills other animals for its food. That's a predator. So we click option D and say next. So on to question number 27. It says government or rule by a small group of people, and the options are monarchy, oligarchy, autocracy, or autonomy. And the correct option is option B, which says oligarchy. Oligarchy is a government by a small group of people, that is controlled by a small group of people. So we click option B, oligarchy, and say next. So question number 28, it says one who copies from other writers, and the options are pluralist, imitator, plagiarist, or copycat. And correct option is option C, which says plagiarist. Plagiarist is someone who copies from other writers or who copies from any others. So to call a plagiarist, we click option C, save and next. On to question number 29. It says things that can be felt or touched, and the options are pandemic, palpable, paltry, or panchromatic. And the correct option is option B, which says palpable. Palpable is something which can be felt or touched. So we click option B and say next. So on to question number 30. It says the scientific study of elections, and the options given before us are pathology, paleontology, psephology, or philology. And the correct option is option C, which says psephology. Psephology is the scientific study of elections. So we click once again option C, I beg your pardon, and say next. So on to question number 31. It says shine with a bright but brief or irregular light, and the options before us are whimper, flicker, cower, and mutter. And the correct option is, of course, option B, which says flicker. Flicker is a brief or irregular light when something shines very briefly and very brightly. That's called flickering. So we click on option B, flicker, and say next. So on to number 32. It asks us the act of setting free from bondage of any kind. What is it called? Is it emancipation, eradication, indemnity, or immigration, and the correct option is option A, which says emancipation. Emancipation is freeing from any kind of bondage, any kind of suffering. That is called emancipation. So we click option A. And then we say next. On to number 33, it says a disease that affects a large number of people in an area at the same time. And the options given are endemic, epidemic, epidermic, endothermic. So the correct option is option B, which says epidemic. Epidemic is, like it says, a disease that spreads very widely and affects a lot of people at the same time. That is called an epidemic. So we click option B and say next. On to number 34, it says one who is 80 years old. What is that kind of person called? Is it called a septuagenarian, sextuagenarian, nonagenarian, or octogenarian? And the correct answer is option D, which says octogenarian. Octo is the Latin word for 8. So someone who is in his 80s is called an octogenarian. So we click option D and say next. On to number 35, it says a shady, fertile place in the desert. The options are oasis, motel, orchard, or garden. And the correct answer is option A, which says oasis. Oasis is the green part in a desert, the fertile spot in a desert. So we click option A. Say next. So on to question number 36. It asks a place where bees are kept. Is it called an apiary, a nursery, an aviary, or a kennel? And the right option is option A, which says apiary. Apiary is a place where bees are kept. So we click apiary, option A, and we move on. So moving on to question number 37, it says a drug which makes one see things that are not really there. And options: aphrodisiac, steroid, carcinogen, or hallucinogen. And the correct option is option D, which says hallucinogen. Hallucinogen is a drug that makes one see things that are really not there. So we click option D. We go on to the next question. On to number 38. It asks us providing relief, and the options are reissue, reprieve, rejoinder, or refuge. And the correct option is option B, which says reprieve. Reprieve means providing relief. So once again we click option B. Say next. On to number 39. It asks us the philosophy of putting another's welfare above one's own. What is it called? Is it agnosticism? Is it polytheism? Is it altruism? Or is it iconoclasm? And the correct option is option C, which is altruism. Altruism is the philosophy of putting one's welfare above another's welfare above one's own, thinking more about others than oneself. So we click option C and say next. So on to number 40. It says a person who is new to a profession. The options given are expert, coach, tutor, and novice. And the correct option is option D, which says novice. Novice is a person who is very new to a profession. So we click option D and say next. So on to number 41. It asks us that which makes one highly knowledgeable. The options are erudition, irreverence, irritability, or impulsiveness. And the correct option is option A, which says erudition. Erudition is something which makes one highly knowledgeable and increases our knowledge. So we click on option A. Say next. On to number 42. It says a state of emotional or intellectual separation. And the options are euphoria, ecstasy, alienation, or communion. And the correct option is alienation. Alienation is the feeling of being separated from something, because it may be emotional or intellectual separation is that state. So we click option C again. Say next. So on to number 43. It says proposition made as a basis for reasoning without the assumption of its truth. And the options given are hypertext, hypocrisy, hyperbole, and hypothesis. And the correct option is option D. It says hypothesis. Hypothesis is something, a proposition which is made on the basis of reason without assuming anything. So we click option D and say next. So on to number 44. It says indifference to pleasure and pain. And the options given are perseverance, tolerance, stoicism, and radicalism. And the correct option is option C, which says stoicism. Stoicism is being indifferent to pleasure and pain, who doesn't react to anything, good and bad. So we say option C. So question number 45, it says no longer a child but not yet an adult. And the options given are youngster, adolescent, juvenile, or yokel. And the correct option is option B, which says adolescent. Adolescent is that stage when you are no longer a child but not yet an adult. So we click option B. Click and say next. So on to number 46. It says act of making things like new again. And the options given are innovate, renovate, motivate, and activate. And the correct option is option B, which says renovate. Renovate is when you make things like new again, like an old house. When you renovate, it said it can be like new again, it can look like that. So we click option B and say next. So number 47, it says one who knows everything. What is he called? Is it omniscient? Is it conscious? Is it intellectual? Or is it learned? And the correct option is option A, which says omniscient. Omniscient is someone who knows everything. So option A, we click and say next. So moving on to number 48, it says any morbid dread of water. And the options given are hydrofoil, hydrophobia, hydraulic, and hyacinth. And the correct option is option B, which says hydrophobia. Hydrophobia is the fear of water. Phobia is fear, hydro is water. So we click option B and say next. So on to number 49, it reads the ceremony of crowning a sovereign. And the options given are felicitation, promotion, coronation, or installation. And correct option is option C, which says coronation. Coronation is a ceremony where a king is crowned. So we click option C. We go to the next question, which is number 50, and question number 50 says, one who tends to patronize, rebuff or ignore people regarded as social inferiors and imitate, admire people regarded as social superiors. And the options given are snob, fob, dandy and freak, and the correct option is option A, which says snob. Snob is someone who looks down on people who he considers his inferiors, lower than him, and tries to imitate and admire people who he regards as superiors to him, regarded as better than him. So we click on option A. Say next. So on to number 51, and the question reads, a room where dead bodies are kept until burial, and the options given are grave, cemetery, mortuary or pyre, and the correct option is option C, which says mortuary. Mortuary is a room where dead bodies are kept until they're taken away for burial. So we click option C and say next. So on to question number 52, it says government by a king. What is it called? Is it called an autocracy, aristocracy, or oligarchy, or monarchy? And the correct option is option D, which says monarchy. Monarchy is a government by a king, where the king has all the powers. That is called a monarchy. So we click option D and say next. So on to number 53, it says Hobson's choice. What is Hobson's choice? Options read, choice to live or die, excellent choice, no choice at all, or big man's choice. And the correct option is option C, no choice at all. Hobson's choice is not having a choice at all. So we click option C and say next. On to number 54, it reads violation of the sanctity of a sacred place. The options are sin, sacrilege, sedition or blasphemy. And the correct option is option B, which says sacrilege. Sacrilege is the violation of the sanctity of a religious place. So we click on option B. Say next. So on to question number 55. It says a child born after the death of father, and the options given are postdated, premature, paternal and posthumous. And the correct answer is option D, which says posthumous. Posthumous is a child who is born after the father has already died. So we click option D and say next. So on to question number 56. It says a person who completely abstains from alcohol, and the options given are teetotaler, drunkard, alcoholic and imposter. And the correct option is option A, which says teetotaler. Teetotaler is a person who completely abstains from alcohol. So we click option A and say next. On to number 57. It reads one who is able to use both hands, and the options given are sinister, ambidextrous, ambivalent and amateur. And the correct option is option B, which says ambidextrous. Ambidextrous is someone who is equally good with using both his hands. So we click option B. Save and next. So on to number 58. It says chief of a group of workmen, and the options given are chieftain, engineer, foreman and middleman. And The correct option is option C, which says foreman. Foreman is the head in a group of work people. So workmen, the chief is called the foreman. We click option C. Say next. On to number 59. It reads, bitter quarrel between two families existing for a long period, and the options given are siege, feud, battle and war, and the correct option is option B, which says feud. Feud is a quarrel between two families which has been going on for a long time. So we click option B and move on. On to question number 60. It reads, animals without a backbone, and the options given are marsupials, mammals, vertebrate or invertebrates, and the correct option is option D, which says invertebrates. Invertebrates are animals which doesn't have a backbone. So we click on option D again. Say next. There we are, about to submit our answers. Let's say submit. There we go. Thank you so much.